You met a lot of people, right?
Oh,
World leaders.
yeah,
You met Putin.
Yeah.
You met Maduro, I think.
Yeah, Maduro.
You met Putin.
Yeah.
You met Chavez,
Castro.
Lula, Castro,
Yeah.
Netanyahu. Which one of them?
Shimon Peres and Netanyahu. Yeah, you're right.
Which one of them that after you spent time with them, walked away, you had a bad impression of them first, but later on you're like, well, you know what? I don't have a bad impression. Which one of them where you're like, oh, I was neutral, but I walked away saying, I don't know if I like this guy?
Netanyahu. Netanyahu, yeah. I thought he was he was very extreme back in 2002. He was going on, and then the bomb went off as we was talking to us. It's in the film. It's called...
Persona non grata.
What?
Persona non grata.
Persona non grata. Yeah, because he goes over to the window, he says, look, that's... And he's right. There was a bomb that was going off in a grocery store. So he was like very concerned, but he had suffered greatly because his brother, Johnny Johan, was killed in the raid in
Uganda, wasn't it? The Uganda raid against...
They made a movie about it. What was it called?
Yeah, I don't remember the film.
The Uganda... the dictator of Uganda had taken hostages, and the Israelis went in with a commando attack, and they succeeded, and they made 2 movies about it, one with Charles Bronson. It was wonderful. But his brother was the only one killed in that raid from the Israeli side. He was killed at the very end. So he's a hero in Israel. There was a lot of vengeance, personal hatred of the Muslim. I felt that with him, that he did not trust them at all. And I felt that it was echoed by, but other people like Rabin and I also, Perez, Shimon was saying, we have to get along, always. That was his, but at the same time, he also said, you cannot trust the Arabs because what they write, what their handwriting, the way they write is very flowery, and it's not objective like scientific. That's his interpretation. So it was an interesting viewpoint. Even Shimon, who was as humanitarian a person as I know, had distrust of the Arabs. And it's fundamental. My first wife was Lebanese, so I felt differently. I liked them. I was spent time in Lebanon before the war, 75. So I have no problem. And like Sean says, I feel like it's closer to the Crusades than it is to a religious issue.
So Netanyahu,
East-West.
Netanyahu was the only one that you walked away.
Yeah, he was dangerous. Because he had such passion, and he had a desire. He was young and strong and amazing stamina. Look at this. He's lasted like Putin. He's lasted 23 some years, and in business like this. And look what he's done, though. He's taking us closer to the nuclear winter than ever. There's no other person alive that is as dangerous. He's lobbied actively for a war against Iran, which is going to be a war not just against Iran, it's going to be a war against China, it's going to be a war against Russia. It's a very dangerous man. I mean, Syria, he's gloating over Syria, but that's not over. It's going to come back and haunt him. This thing is so ugly, it's gotten out of hand, and that's because of us supporting Israel blindly without ever questioning them. Kennedy questioned them. That was the whole point that, Kennedy said this nuclear thing is going to stop. He said, we're not going to give them nuclear weapons. And he was adamant about it, and he was going to stop it. When Johnson took over after the assassination, Johnson turned a blind eye to it. When we knew for sure that they had a weapon in 1967, Johnson made sure they didn't announce it. The Pentagon did not announce it.
What do you think also about, this policy shift? It wasn't like it was always adamantly whatever Israel wants until 2001. That's when the neocons take over. That's when the 9/11 justifies all these wars in the Middle East, so-called justifies. Obviously, what did it do? Did it bring benefit to the American people? Did it stabilize anything? No, we destabilized that region. But as I said, it's been all Israel policy and mostly Netanyahu policy. And Netanyahu is closer to Hamas. I mean, that's what's really curious, when you look at the history that, as you know, Netanyahu and company hated Arafat, right? So back in the 80s, they actually allowed Hamas to grow. That's now known that Israel was essentially allowing Hamas to grow into this beast because it played off against Arafat's, PLO and those guys, Fatah and those guys. So they used that, and I think that's what's so curious is that Hamas is almost it truly is Netanyahu's best weapon. I mean, at the moment that he was being indicted in the Supreme Court, I think there's a new documentary about Bibi's file, I think it's called. It's
BB
nominated.
file,
Yeah, it's being nominated for Best Picture, exposing all this corruption that he was charged with. He was gone. And then October 7th comes, and it justifies everything. It's like these moments, that justify war, as you know. Very much provocative.
You should study that.
You know,
The BB files?
the BB files, I think.
Well, it came at that very strange moment when he's about to go. Remember how close he came to being evicted?
So the angle you're taking with him is the moment you realize what happened to his brother in Uganda, which was the only one you're saying that died. From that moment on, this went from being, just a job or a career that I'm going to do because I love Israel to
Personal passion.
a personal passion, crusade, cause, correcting an injustice.
Well, we didn't know him before, so you can't say what he was.
Well, I knew him at that point.
But I'm saying, before, and he was those guys were true believers from the beginning. But he, people say he was part of killing Rabin. He created that atmosphere, if nothing else. Netanyahu did. Remember when Rabin was killed? Netanyahu was
That's the
playing up
brother,
that
yeah.
atmosphere.
Who was
So
a
Yonatan was an Israeli military
Really,
officer who commanded the Sayeret Matkal during the
was a Harvard graduate, I think.
Was he a Harvard graduate?
Yeah,
Go a little over.
he briefly attended.
United States.
He was a real hero.
After serving the Israeli military during the Six-Day War, he briefly attended Harvard University before transferring to Hebrew University of Jerusalem in 1960. Thereafter, he was studied, returned to military in Israel. So what year did he die? 76. Is this his older brother?
Yes.
This is his older brother.
Yes.
How many years apart are they? Can you check to see when Bibi was born? Because he's 46. I don't think Bibi's into. Okay. So 3 years older. Got it. Interesting. And this has been a commitment he's made to his brother to seek his vengeance. Is that kind of how you process it?
It was the origin of this passion.
Don't you think for somebody to get to that level of power, you almost need something like this, like to get to that level? I mean, look at Trump. He doesn't drink any alcohol. Why not? You know the story with his brother, Fred, right? We hear those stories, right?
Although it was a decision before.
It was a decision before, you're right, because he told him, look, listen to me, never drink alcohol, never drink alcohol. And he's like, I'm not going to do it. And he tells his kids.
Did he learn that from Roy Cohn? I don't know if Roy Cohn was taught him.
Roy was a drinker, remember in the movie?
Okay.
Did you watch The Apprentice?
Yeah.
What did you think about it?
I saw it twice.
Me too. I saw it twice in the first week.
I much enjoyed it. Very well done.
What was your impression?
And I didn't walk away thinking that Trump was the monster of all time. That was part of that whole campaign. That's why the Democrats overdid it. They overdid everying on Trump.
The movie flopped. I don't know why.
I always said to you, if you remember correctly, I said the worst president we've ever had was George W. Bush. And I told you why. Because he started the whole war on terror. And I said, what's Trump compared to that? And, why are the Democrats having this hysteria about derangements and no one paid attention. But wait until this thing is cleared. If we ever get through it, we're going to have to look back at that period from 2001.
How do you think?
And that phony election with the Chads and all that. That was the worst moment for me in this century. I remember that night so well when I was going south with his Scalia jumping in on the Florida thing and saying there's an irregularity here, and then they suspended the recount. Remember?
You wanted Gore at that time?
I did want Gore, yes. And I think it was a key election. I thought it was the whole century turned on it in a way. It was a strange date. It was one of those things like the McKinley election in 1900.
You're going to think I'm crazy when I tell you this, but the last 13 and a half years, I've been working on my first fiction book to write, ever. Fiction book to write. And while I finished this book, a year ago, I got the strangest phone call about one of the characters in the book where the guy wanted to meet with me, and he read the book. And afterwards, it's like, wait a minute, am I the villain in the book? This is a story about a character named Asher, who is half Armenian, half Assyrian, whose father was involved in the Iranian Revolution, linked to Savak, working with the Shah, that they escape and he gets recruited to a secret society. Well, when you go to the secret society, it's been around for a couple thousand years. They've developed some of the craziest leaders of all time. And they test you. There's unique tests that they have at this society where they test to see your emotional mental toughness. One of the tests that they have is very rigorous. It's purely mental. Of course, there's a physical one, but one is mental and emotional. If you're Armenian, if you're Syrian, if you're Persian, this is a book you're going to be reading and saying, holy moly, this is the kind of stuff you talk about in here? Yes. If you're somebody that's fascinated by history, this is a book for you. Characters. There's a technology that this society, secret society, builds where you go into a vault. I won't spoil it for you. When you go down, they have a technology where you get to sit down and watch and have a 3-4 hour conversation with Tupac. You can set up a debate between Karl Marx and Ayn Rand. Karl Marx is in the book, who wrote Communist Manifesto. Ayn Rand, who wrote Atlas Shrugged, is in the book. Marilyn Monroe explains the concept of seduction and sex in the book. When you read the book, it's about development of the next leaders in the world and how they do it and how they've been doing it for many years. And it's also about how to prevent the end of civilization and how this organization goes about doing it. So I've never written a parenting book before, but if I ever wrote a parenting book, this is the closest thing to it because it's all mindset, a lot of crazy stories. Again, 13 and a half years. Trust me, I told myself I will not publish this book until I sell my insurance company and I'm fully disconnected from it, where it's no longer my responsibility 100%. When you read this, if you're a creative person, if you like fiction books, if you enjoyed Atlas Shrugged, or if you enjoy Divergent, if you like books like that, I think you're gonna enjoy reading this book. It's the creative side. Business books is very easy. Here's how you do it. Here's how this how it works. This is very creative. If you haven't placed your order yet, now you can order it on Simon & Schuster, Amazon. I'm going to put the link up below somewhere here, maybe even in my profile. Go order the book and read it. I've never written a book where I can't wait to read your reviews to see what you think about this book. So I'm going on this wild journey, and we have some plans with this book here. If you support the things that I work on, I would appreciate you going and reading the book, order the book on Amazon, and then post a review. If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.